Hey everyone, welcome to Culture Critic. I'm with a good friend of mine today, Daniel Carowin, and we're going to be discussing a bunch of different subjects. Today we're going to be talking about Elliott Smith. So I've been listening to Elliott Smith myself for about 10 years, and I think he's probably the best songwriter of the last 20 years or so. To me, he was kind of a great, kind of a second coming of someone like Dylan. Even though the music is such a different type of music, just having a great songwriter in this day and age is pretty rare. There's a couple out there like Damien Rice and Glenn Hansard, and there's some other really good writers out there. But for the most part, it's hard to find really good songwriting, I think, in the last 20 years maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Something like that. So I want to talk about Elliott Smith today because Daniel has kind of recently started to get into Elliott Smith after I beat him over the head with him for a while. So tell me a little bit about like kind of what triggered you to start really getting into him, and what, if there's any songs in particular or albums that kind of hooked you to where you were like, all right, this is something I really like, or what kind of got you started with him?
Well, like you said, you beat me over the head for a number of years, it
Right.
seems like, so that helped me, and I finally said, okay, I'm going to start listening to him. And like Damien Rice, I mean, after I listened to him for a good amount of time, I really got into the melody and just the rhythm and just the feel of his music, the simplicity, but also the sophistication of his music really drew me into it. Like you said, Dylan. That's how Dylan's music is to my mind.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's also sophisticated at the same time, and it just draws you in, and that's what I love so much about what he has to offer.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. There's a lot of there's a kind of a somewhat simple feel into like a lot of Dylan songs, like let's say Masters of War, songs like that, with this really repetitive, simple melody, but they're actually really difficult to play. You know, like especially Elliott Smith stuff. I don't play guitar. I've tried. Daniel plays some guitar. I've had taken some lessons and stuff like that over the years, and guitar teachers have told me like, you want to learn how to play Elliott Smith, basically good luck. Like playing some of those, he does so many chord changes throughout the song, and it makes it sound so simple and smooth. But for any like normal human being, you're working your ass off trying to make these chord changes, like up down up down up down. Every freaking strum, he's doing chord changes almost. It's kind of crazy. But so, are there any particular songs that really kind of got you into it, or any particular album or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, because they all have the same. I mean, they're all very dissimilar, but they're also all very gripping at the same time. All of them have a really cool like sarcasm and tension in them a lot, and some of them are upbeat. But they all still have that like tension that really just pulls me in and just really intrigues me and makes me want to listen to more and more about it.
Yeah, it's when I discovered Elliott Smith, maybe like I said, maybe 10 years ago, something like that. I went through like all 4 or 5 albums at that point. There have been a few albums since that have kind of come to light and we have now available, which is great. But at the time, I think there was 4, maybe 5 albums, and I think I listened to all 4 or 5 of them like 300 times over the course of like 3 days. And I was listening to almost every song, which for me, you guys know this from some of the reviews. For me, that's really rare. Usually, a good album to me has 2 good songs, and I'm pretty happy with that. So some of these albums, like From a Basement on the Hill, and some of these other albums, like Figure Eight, I've got like 8 or 9 tracks that I think are incredible. And part of it's because they're all very similar in nature. They're all just so fucking good. I mean, there's just like song after song after song. I'm like, man, that melody's incredible. Or, God, do you hear that line? Do you hear that lyric in that song? That's just brilliant. And it just keeps going and keeps going. And every single song is so great. That's one thing that, to me, Elliott Smith is probably better to me than Dylan and a lot of other people that I love, is as far as making just tighter albums. Like, as much as I love Dylan, a lot of those albums he's got that I think are some of the greatest albums of all time have 3 songs I like. Maybe 4. Maybe if I'm lucky, 4 great songs. Some of the Elliott Smith albums, you've got 8 killer tracks in one album, which to me is pretty wild.
I do like Dylan songs more so than I like most of Elliott Smith's songs.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree.
But Elliott Smith is just so consistent with just the quality of his music, of his songs.
Yeah, there's not going to be as many Smith songs that maybe grab you as hard as like some of the Dylan songs. I mean, some of the songwriting in Dylan, or for me, Leonard Cohen, some of that stuff, it kind of makes you like, kind of almost gives you goosebumps for a second. Like it's such a line that just grabs you so hard. I don't think Elliott Smith has as many lines like that. It's more just this constant, consistent high bar of quality, right?
Yeah, like you touched upon, it's the subtlety of Elliott Smith and his lyrics and also his just music.
Yeah.
As opposed to Dylan, and he can be subtle. Dylan can be subtle, but he's also going to be very explicit and beat you over the head with his point. But again, there's just this very subtle underlying tension in all of Elliott Smith's work that just makes it so different, so intriguing at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely is really, that's a good word, different. I mean, I don't think anybody else was doing anything like Elliott Smith was when he was doing it. I mean, I don't think anybody's doing like anything like it now, but much less back then. It's such a distinct sound. I mean, he has this incredibly soft voice, but these, like, in many cases, very hard lyrics, right? Some of the lyrics are, you could imagine them like in a punk song or something like that almost, but yet it's coming out of this like soft, kind of like weak sounding, like angelic type of voice. It's like, it's kind of a bizarre sound.
Yeah, and then when you use expletives, you know, it just amplifies like what he's saying in his song. It just makes the poignancy of what he's saying that much more just strike at you.
Yeah. But yeah, so hopefully you guys already know who Elliott Smith is. You've been listening to him for a long time. But if you don't, if you haven't been listening to him, you definitely need to check his music out. I cannot recommend one album over another. I love all of his music so much, especially, you know, if you're interested in just more of who he was. There was actually a recent documentary that was released that's really great. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay. It's pretty interesting. It's not the best made documentary by any means, but it gives you a little extra insight into his life, into who he was, into some of the songwriting and his kind of musical progression, because he started off, you know, basically doing like hard music. I mean, he was doing like pretty hard stuff. He was with a group called Heat Miser, and they were doing like a slightly punk metal type of sound, which you can imagine like him singing that stuff is weird as hell.
Yeah,
so if you haven't seen that stuff, you check it out. I don't like the music personally, but it's just interesting to see where he came from and what he started doing, and then what he did later on is just so different. I mean, he basically decided to break out on his own because everyone kept saying like, you're so fucking talented and your band's fine. You know what I mean? Like, nothing wrong with them. Yeah. But you can imagine if like if Dylan had started with the band when he was, you know, 16 years old and started with the band, you can imagine how long that would have lasted, where it's like, well, you're so much more talented than your band.
And in terms of sound, it's like Corey Taylor transforming into Damien Rice, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't make too much sense.
It's totally different. Yeah, it's I think someone in the documentary says something like, if you guys don't know about this, you're going to be shocked when you see some of this footage. Like, you would never in a million years think this is Elliott Smith up there singing this stuff. So it's pretty different, but the documentary is really interesting because it just goes through his life and helps you understand where some of his pain or angst or other things come from, and his relationship with his stepdad and his mom and all this other stuff like that. It's really interesting stuff. So definitely check that out. I think you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can actually get it on their website. You can just watch it. I don't know if it's free, maybe like $5. I don't know what it is, but definitely worth watching. If not, at a minimum, just to sit down and listen to some Elliott Smith songs while the documentary is playing. So just to give you guys an idea, some of my favorite songs, it's so hard to pick with Elliott Smith because I have so many that I love. But I would probably say number one would be Between the Bars. That's just one of my favorite songs of all time. It's such a great song. Another song with a totally different vibe and totally different sound would be like King's Crossing. I love that song. And then some of the slower like piano-based songs like I Didn't Understand. That's a phenomenal song. For me, with songs like that, there's really no other artist throughout time besides, for me, Neil Young, that feels so like vulnerable with his lyrics. I mean, he's just putting it all out there, and it's not about like, you know, some social cause or some bigger picture. A lot of it's just this really deep personal stuff. And to me, Neil Young does the exact same thing. I mean, Neil Young is one of the only artists to me ever besides Smith that some of the songs, I mean, they feel like they were kind of written for you, right? It's not about a bigger picture or this and that. It feels like it literally is something that you would write if you were anywhere near as talented as they were, right? If I had the ability to write something like that. So to me, the songs like that Elliott Smith put together, they feel incredibly personal and intimate, but also just unbelievably vulnerable and give you such a look into, you know, what they're feeling at the time. It's pretty amazing. I don't think many people have done that over, you know, the history of music, to me at least.
There's a good contrast between Dylan, Elliott Smith,
right.
Neil Young, like you pointed out before, is the social aspect versus the personal aspect.
Yeah.
That Dylan does not really go into, the personal aspect that is.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan has some songs about his personal life, but certainly most of them are about important causes or issues or, you know, just some kind of amazing. He kind of just captures like America at that time or people at that time, which is so incredible. It's a great skill set, which is probably why he's my favorite artist of all time. But the reason Smith and Young are so close to me as far as that kind of greatness level, and same with Leonard Cohen, is simply because like it's a different type of music, but the lyrics are still so brilliant. So many artists that do write songs about themselves, to me at least, I couldn't care less. I mean, you're listening to the song and you're thinking, A, the lyrics are like cheesy, or you can see him coming from a mile away what the next line's going to be, what the next verse is going to be. and you don't get that with Smith or Neil Young. Do you have any particular songs that like really stand out to you though?
You know, I really don't. I really don't, because I mean, again, they're just all, they all have particular special meanings that apply for me in certain periods of my life at certain times of my life.
Yeah.
So for right now, it might be one song. Tomorrow might be another song. Next week might be another song. Because he touches on so many different issues across his music, and I think it's really cool. You can really find something for yourself within his music that applies to you.
So Daniel made a really good point before about, you know, some of the songs are kind of sarcastic and they're a little bit lighter. Obviously, a lot of the music's pretty heavy, pretty personal stuff, but some of the songs like Angelus are a little bit lighter take. It's still kind of dealing with some serious subject matter, but he's got this really charming kind of wit about some of the songs, which Dylan has a lot of that. Obviously, Dylan wrote a lot of songs, especially in his early career, that are very sarcastic, funny, almost like comedy songs. Not a ton of them, but he had a few of them, really funny ones. So Elliott Smith definitely has some of that kind of style to him. All right, so definitely check out Elliott Smith's music if you have not already. You're in luck because when you get into him and you like him, you've got so many great songs you're going to get into. It's not like you're going to discover 3 new songs to put in your catalog. You're going to discover probably 50 songs that are just phenomenal. And check out some of the newer, more obscure stuff that's come out since. Like there's an album that goes with that documentary that has a few hidden tracks. You may not have heard some of them, like True Love is one of my favorite Elliott Smith songs. I'd never heard it until this kind of recent release. So definitely check that out. Get as much as you can. Let me know down in the comments section what you guys think about Elliott Smith. What's your favorite song? What's your favorite album? Your favorite line? Your favorite lyric? I want to hear all about it. I want to thank Daniel for hanging out today and talking about Elliott Smith with me. I'm glad he's starting to get into him, and hopefully he just keep listening to him and keep discovering new stuff and checking him out. He's so talented, and it sucks that we don't get more of him, and it sucks that he's gone. So definitely hit the like button, subscribe to the channel below, and we'll see you guys at the next Culture Critic.